All right, nerds, I'm back. Bet you didn't think I would be coming back. I don't know what. I mean, or maybe you did. Maybe you're indifferent. I don't know, folks. I'm not your dad. I'm not your mom. I'm not the guy at the corner grocery store who sells you lottery tickets and tells you which roll hasn't hit in a while so that it'll kind of trick you into thinking that you're more likely to win. Me and my friends, I didn't do it, but my friends used to do that and I would watch them. I was not stupid enough to partake in that gambit. The old roll that hasn't hit yet. They used to always say, like, well, didn't you know that every roll has to guarantee a 25% payout? Which I don't believe is true. I'm pretty sure the point of there being a lottery, gambling in general, is that there is no such thing as a guarantee. Like, they kind of were treating it like a stack of cards. Say, like in blackjack, if you were playing with one deck, where, like, if all the cards had been a certain type, then the end of the deck, you can kind of know what it's going to be. I guess it also applies if you're playing with multiple decks. It's just harder to count them. I don't know, folks. I've never attempted card counting either. I used to be like a math guy when I was in school. I'd do the math. That was a subject, and then every, degenerate's always like, oh, you can do math. We should go to the casino, count cards. That's how they talk in my region, for the zero people who listen to this podcast. If any of you aren't from the Boston area, that's how people talk. Gotta do math. Dude, he's wicked smart. He can count cards. He's like fucking Damon in the fucking movie Kid. I had a great weekend. I retreated to the White Mountains. Those are they're not white, they're green. They're kind of white in the winter when there's snow. Primarily green, but Green Mountain was taken, because that's in Vermont. The White Mountains in New Hampshire, and I guess also Maine. I was up there, I had a great time. I climbed a couple of mountains, I soaked in a river, I ate way too much food at these tourist trappy side of the road locations, and did a little bit of mushrooms. They made me throw up immediately. I didn't feel much, but I still had a good time. Drank about 1 million Coronas, and yeah, it was fun. We'll get back to that in a little bit. But first I need to say, because of the fact that on last week's episode of the podcast, I made the baseless accusation that Kanye West is a closeted homosexual, the Kardashians were so floored by my content that they canceled their entire show. Bye, my Kardashians. See you next time. Unfortunately, my high school didn't go out of business because I made some basic accusations about administrative staff at my high school as well, and I was kind of hoping that they would, also cave to the podcast and go out of business. But I think the point to be made here is that if I libel someone, then, they might just go away. So your move, Uncle Turtle Boy. Uncle Turtle Boy is like a fake Boston area journalist, if you guys haven't been keeping along with the saga. He's awful. He's a pedophile, too. Pedophile. Can't sue me. It's a comedy podcast. It's satire. This is really weird. Where I have my desk set up in my apartment, I'm just, by a window, and I don't have any blinds or curtains or anything. So my neighbors can just see directly into my house, and every now and then I'm just kind of absentmindedly staring out the window and then realize I'm staring directly into my neighbor's house. And I'm pretty sure the room across from this room is a bedroom, so I'm not spying on anyone. It's just, and then I notice that there's human flesh in there, and I'm like, what? I'm disciplined, though. I'm not sure if I know a boy and a girl live there. I'm not sure if it's the man's room, adults. I'm not sure if it's the adult woman's room or the adult man's room, because that's how quick I look away when I notice a human body. Maybe I should just get blinds. I don't know. It goes both ways, also, because I live alone currently, and sometimes I'm just like, I'm getting ready for the shower, and I'm in the shower, and I'm in the towel, and then I realize that I want to, respond to an email before I go into the shower, so I just walk straight into my living room naked, and then I realize they can see directly into my apartment. So, hey, I'm not looking at you, so you better not look at me. Or you can't. I don't really care that much, honestly. You just better not complain. I saw your penis. I was like, well, close your blinds. You have blinds. I can tell they have blinds because I'm kind of in my peripherals. I can see they put their blinds down. Probably because they noticed I was at my computer doing this wonderful podcast that so many people listen to, award-winning. When there's a Grammy Award for podcasts, which I assume there will be soon, I probably will win it. I have listeners in every English-speaking nation and plus a few non-English-speaking nations. North Korea, supreme leader, big fan of the pod. We've said this many times. We're doing really well. Yeah. The only reason I'm not allowed to go on like Joe Rogan and be a guest is because I'm afraid of flying. But he's calling me he's, Kev, I need, you could do, and I was like, first of all, I don't even need to because I have so many listeners, I doubt it would even move the needle a little bit. But second of all, I'm just terrified of getting on a plane and going for a flight down to Austin, Texas. Beautiful city, though. I went to college there. That part wasn't that great. I dropped out in like a suicidal fit of depression and just kind of spiraled out of control. I was in a bad toxic relationship. It was she was physically and emotionally abusive, and that's not like something that is easy for men to talk about. I'm going to talk about it anyway because I have no filter, and that's kind of the reason that this podcast exists. Because I'm not even if I get health insurance back and I go back on meds, I don't even know if I'll be able to do this pod anymore. Quite frankly, because I'm pretty sure me having like manic episodes and just always having a recording station ready that I can just sit down at and go off for an hour is the only thing that keeps this BS running. That and the occasional appearance by Dan Reardon. Shout out to Dan Reardon if you didn't listen to his podcast. It's a fun little romp, and maybe someday we'll have a guest soon. I am talking to, I used to produce a few comedy shows in the great town of Melrose, Massachusetts, where I was born and raised, and there was a guy there who he volunteered for the local TV station. He would kind of just like film them. He'd film them with two cameras, directional mics. We probably should have lined the microphone directly into a board or something, but neither here nor there. And anyways, he would put out good footage. Comics who performed on the show would get the footage, they could use it, and it was fun. So he also knows a lot about like producing podcasts and stuff. So we're thinking of partnering with him. The only disadvantage of doing it in his studio is that I don't think I'll be allowed to smoke pot while I record, which I probably could do. I could probably figure it out. I'm not that dumb. I don't need drugs. I might need drugs. There's definitely certain drugs I do need that I don't have access to because I don't have health insurance. That's neither here nor there. One thing I don't need is marijuana. Just kidding. I think I do. I think I might have a problem. I'm just kidding, folks. I don't have a problem with marijuana. Only problems with booze. Speaking of drugs I haven't done, I gotta say, I do miss myself some nice cocaine. Just get yourself a little bit of cocaine. Have a couple of beers. Or you rub the coke on your gums and then you just drink whiskey on the rocks and you get real fucked up, but the whiskey's like easy to drink because you're numb. That's kind of the American way. Because that's thinking smarter. Because it's like, let's use this, we want to get high and we also want to get drunk. We can use this drug as multi-purposed. We can use it to better improve the ways that we access both of those states. It's fun. My girlfriend wants to do Molly with me, and that has proven not a super easy thing to find, especially when you're on the, don't have a job and it's the middle of a quarantine budget. But Molly would be fun. The problem with the old Molly is that you can't... We're really, really closing in here in New England on the end of splashing around in the water while rolling face season. So, unfortunately... I think I've entirely missed splashing around in the water while rolling face season. We had a great time up there in the White Mountains. She was with me, and we went in rivers, and it's fun because some parts of the river you can lie down and you just kind of go like woo, and some people rent tubes. We didn't have tubes. We just kind of you can just lay down in the river and let the water rush over you. It's rather satisfying. I'm actually kind of a proponent lately of a river is better than just a regular beach. Because the beach, you have the sand that you can sit in and blah, 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 blah. But on a nice river, like the Saco River where we were, or Saco, we got locals. Now, a lot of these fucking plebes of the Boston area will say it's the Saco River. We got confirmation it's the Saco. The A is pronounced with an O sound. Saco River. Saco. So anyways, it's like a wide river and there's a bunch of rocks that you can like sit on or lie down on and you're like immersed by it. That's so much cooler than just kind of like being next to the beach. Because sometimes you go to the beach and you sit on the sand, you don't go near or in the water at any point. You know, you just want that beach aesthetic, but you don't really care. If you're about water, if you are about the water, you should check out some rivers. Rivers are great. A river runs through it. Brad Pitt. Horrible movie, by the way. That movie wasn't good. I just remember, and then there's this long, boring story that doesn't really, I mean, it might have made sense. I probably wasn't paying attention. And then in the end, in the epilogue, the guy's like fishing as an old man, and he's like, and then a week later, my brother was beaten to death with the blunt end of a revolver. And I'm like, oh, thank God. That guy, one of the characters at least died. I was hating these guys. I wish that they all died. Like the river just maybe rose and flooded the town and drowned them all. Boy, I'll tell you, I don't remember the plot of that movie at all. I remember we had to watch it in theology class, so I'm sure it had some fucking stupid message about like Christian vocations or some fake subject. The funny thing about theology is you could get like an F in it, and then most colleges did not actually look at the theology grade at all when calculating your GPA. Because they're like, okay, math, great, English, great, history, great. It's like hokey bullshit. Like, yeah, we don't fucking care. Like, honestly, you're probably a free thinker if you got an F in theology. One of the smartest guys I know, I'm not going to say his name because he's got a great job, but lives in New York. Out of college, he was making over $200,000. He works for a real big fintech. That's financial tech for you plebes. And he failed theology when he was a senior in high school. Because he had this big final project, and he said, I'm not going to dignify this class by doing this project. And, you know, he did fine, and that was the right thing to do. And, you know, graduated Carnegie Mellon. I remember when I was in college, I met a girl who was spending the summer in Austin. She was a student at Carnegie Mellon. She was in the same grade as this kid, and she was like, oh, I know that kid. He was my TA. So he got to be a TA even though he was the same age. That's how, like, he was a smart cookie, and failed theology, which is a fake class. Let's see. A River Runs Through It is a 1992 American drama film directed by Robert Redford, starring Craig Sheffer, Tom Brad Pitt, blah, 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 blah. Semi-autobiographical novella, A River Runs Through It, by Norman MacLean. Okay. The story follows two sons of a Presbyterian minister. I'm surprised they even allowed us to watch a movie where Presbyterianism was depicted in our Catholic school. One studious and the other rebellious. I remember that. Guess which one the rebellious one was? Hint, it was Brad Pitt, obviously. He was not the studious one. Let's be, you know. As they grew up together in the Rocky Mountain region during a span of time from roughly World War I to the early days of the Great Depression, including part of the Prohibition era. Won the Academy Award for Best Cinematography in 1993 and was nominated for 2 other Oscars. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so it's just these, like, people, you know, they're sons of a minister, which, like, could be cool in a situation where there's, like, vampires or something, and the minister, like, needs to use, you know, God powers to, like, that's a cool art, like Freddy Krueger or something, but nah, I think they just, like, you know, rode around on bikes and then went fishing and then, like, maybe drank at a bar and then gambled and something. The closing scene is the elderly Norman once again fishing on the same river, with director Robert Redford narrating the final lines from the original novella. Of course, now I'm too old to be much of a fisherman, and now I usually think to fish in big waters alone, although some friends think I shouldn't. But when I'm alone in half-light of the canyon, all existence seems to fade beyond my shoulder memories. With the sounds of the Big Blackfoot River and the four-count rhythm, I hope that a fish will rise. Eventually, all things merge into one, and a river runs through it. The river was cut by the world's great flood, and runs over rocks from the basement of time. On some of the rocks are timeless raindrops. Under the rocks are words, and some of the words are theirs. I'm haunted by waters. So that was a bunch of hokey nonsense, obviously. So now I can kind of understand why we watched it in theology class. That paragraph was complete and utter bullshit. all it had to do, it just made a bunch of references to like nature, and then I had the sort of cadence or gaze of being pseudo intellectual. And pretentious people eat that shit up. He probably had, my teacher probably read it and was like, and this is how we can tie it back into Jesus, because Jesus was the Word. The light was the Word, and the Word was with God. Look, if two men were supposed to have sex with one another, then a river would not run through them. The river runs through it from the man's penis to the woman's vagina, and sometimes her mouth, and sometimes on your birthday her asshole. A river can't run from one penis to another. And that is why God, in his infinite wisdom, in the light, in the word, under the rocks at time, God has said that marriage is between a man and a woman. A river runs through the words of God. That teacher would be like, he was a hockey coach that for some reason just taught a class. I think maybe he made extra money if he taught like the one class, and obviously he couldn't teach math, so they gave him bullshit class. And he'd be like, hey, let's talk about rape, guys. It was an all-boys school. Guys, you know what happens when you rape? It's about a little bit worse than when you masturbate. You're not using your sexuality the way you're supposed to be using it. Rape, disordered sexuality. God doesn't hate your sexuality. A river runs through it. But God wants you to have an ordered sexuality. And then he had literally a slide that was like examples of disordered sexuality. Premarital sex, masturbation, rape. And, it wasn't on a gradient where you like color-coded them or anything, where like those two were maybe green and then rape was like red to show that it was way worse. It was like, no, they were just kind of lumped in. God's just like, sinner. That's like the kind of fucked up part of that whole thing. It's like, you're a sinner! Like, because you masturbate, which is a relatively benign thing. Like, if that's the case, then, the decent argument could be made that, I masturbated when I was a kid, so I guess I'm going to hell no matter what. I better just live a hedonistic life and not value anyone else as a human being. I don't know. I'm just here to ask provocative questions and get the Kardashians canceled. Anyone good in this? William Hoodkins as Murphy. William Hoodkins. Best known for supporting roles in Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Batman. Who was he in these movies? He was Porkins, the famous Porkins. William Hoodkins, the famous Porkins from Star Wars lore. It's like one of those things where he's no one's favorite character, but there's some of those, like, people who want to show how, like, nerdy they are, and they're like, my favorite character is Porkins. Do you even know who that is, hot girl? And then she's like, no, but I'm not going to have sex with you because I'm not impressed by your knowledge of who Porkins was. Fucking weirdo. And then he was someone named Lieutenant Eckhart in the 1989 Batman. Probably a cop, I imagine. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen that movie, and I don't remember random characters named Lieutenant Eckhart. I had a job interview today, and a quality I really admired about this interview is that I was interviewing with two people, and neither of them turned their camera on. It was over Zoom, obviously, because that is just the nature of things. Neither of them turned their camera on, which I think is just a truly fantastic quality that a company culture can have. Like, as soon as I realized that they couldn't be fucked to turn their camera on, I was like, oh my God, I would love to work for these people. So I really hope I get the job, folks. I really hope. That's all we can do. All we can hope. All we can hope for is that I get a job then die in my sleep. You gotta know when to hold a bold. Oh, and when to fold 'em. Know that Kanye's gay. They canceled the show. He's got semen in his blood. Get thoughts all over the time. Kanye's a secret gay. He's got gay men fucking him. Big loads on his face. Someday you'll know that Kanye's gay. That is, I love my little song covers that I do. I think they're very fun. And I think that they keep the listeners engaged while they're raking leaves or, visiting their families and, leaning against their wrist, and they're wearing a long sleeve shirt, and secretly there's a headphone earbud in their wrist, which, by the way, is why this podcast is released with equal channels coming through the left and right speaker. There's some bullshit podcasts that are like, I'm going to interview this guy, and the left headphone is going to be me, and the right, and then you can't, if your headphones are shitty, you can't even listen to it at all. Dumb idea, dumb concept. That was a classic move. One time we had to memorize this soliloquy in high school, and this kid recorded himself saying it slowly and put the entire thing on his iPod or something, and then wired a headphone into his long sleeve shirt and kind of pinned it at his wrist. And then he scratched the back of his head, pretending he couldn't remember stuff, and closed his eyes like he was thinking. And then he just said the whole soliloquy like that. The teacher had no idea. Flawless execution. That was some Ocean's 11 level tier fucking grifting. That kid was grifting. Ugh. I got this horrible, it's called a puff bar. It's like a single-use jewel, and it's just really shitty engineering. The branding's kind of cool, but boy is this horrible. I was in New Hampshire where this is a legal thing to buy. This kind of shit has been outlawed in Massachusetts by Governor Baker's fascist regime. He's not a Republican. He's a Massachusetts Republican. It's different. Massachusetts Republicans still feel like poor people should get fucked. But one thing they do like is that they're not loud on TV like Donald Trump. They're not loud and rude. I mean, yes, they still believe that corporations should be bailed out and that if you're poor, you should die on the street with no assistance. But they're not loud and rude. I don't think Charlie Baker actually believes that poor people should die on the street with no assistance. But I don't know that much about him, so I'm not going to say it's not true either. This thing sucks. Horrible. The flavor is called mint, but it tastes way more like that shitty... You Juul fans out there will know that... Sorry, I'm just messing stuff around. Jesus Christ. That's Jason. I just heard that come through the headphones. That's going to end up being pretty loud on the podcast. Yeah, I'm going to spray some Febreze, even though there's no need. And let's see if that comes out. Woo, it's Febreze! Ooh, that sounds really dirty compared to what it sounds like in real life. The microphone has a very interesting interpretation of what squirting Febreze sounds like. Ugh. That's WAP. Keep Ben Shapiro away from this Febreze bottle. Now it just smells like lavender everywhere. I'm sorry, not lavender. Mediterranean lavender. This is... now I'm going to inhale the Febreze and it's going to be bad. Man, this is a great way to kill time. Well, California's on fire. Fucking great. I was, Ben, if you didn't know, is my long-term plan is to sort of get a job that I can work remotely and eventually relocate to the San Francisco Bay Area. I probably didn't say that on the podcast, actually, now that I think about it, because I was deliberately trying to tell as few people that as possible. I'm not going to bleep it out anyway. Yeah, I do actually think it's really, cunty, because I see people who are on, their Instagram story, or they'll do, a poll on Twitter, and they're like, poll, should I move to New York? And they don't just do it. They're I've seen people should I run a marathon? And then it's just on Twitter, I'll always vote no because it's anonymous. Because I don't care whether or not they move to New York. I think you should do what makes you happy. But why are you placating the masses of the social media network in major life decisions? Of course, if you vote no on Instagram, then they'll be like, whoa, this person doesn't support me. Because they can see you. Just fucking make your decisions. How fucking underdeveloped are you intellectually that you actually have to do a poll to decide whether you should drop your entire, life that you're right in the middle of the building and move to a different city? Or should I run a marathon? That would be great if you could just leave. I would love to leave a paragraph response saying, actually, no, you should not run a marathon because statistically shown running is I don't know, just some bullshit excuse. I mean, I think anyone who wants to run a marathon should run a marathon, but just fucking train and run it. Don't make a poll. Oh yeah, and then once you get into girls who should I dye my hair? Should I get a tattoo of my mom's vulva to show how much I love her? It's all a bunch of shit. All a bunch of shit. All a bunch of just like the Puff Bar. It's worse than the Puff Bar. But yeah, that was a plebiscite that may or may not be derailed by the fact that the state is burning down. One of the things drew me specifically to the Bay Area is that it's just quite a beautiful landscape, a lot of awesome hiking, and I only got, I climbed maybe like 6 mountains this summer. I'll probably be able to get a few more in the fall. But living out in a place where you just got easy access to that kind of awesome hiking is a huge plus for me. So we'll see if it all burns down. I'm not sure if I'm interested in climbing a peak and having it be all charred bullshit. That might just be too sad. Like, if they can get rid of the orange sky, well, once they put out the fires, in theory, the sky will stop being orange. But boy, was that a lot of smoke! The best part about it is that, so these idiots started a fire when doing a gender reveal party, and obviously gender reveal parties are very obnoxious, not just because it subscribes to, like, the binary belief of gender, but just because any event where you make friends and family members congregate around you to give you attention is annoying and bullshit and entitled, and you're not important. And I'm sure maybe you have like stupid friends, like maybe the female of the couple was in a sorority and she has a bunch of stupid friends who think that that's like a cool thing that you should do. I'm gonna say most people would resent being invited to a gender reveal party, regardless of how they feel about the binary nature of gender. Like J.K. Rowling, you know how she feels about it, right? She'd probably still be like, "Oh, I say, I don't want to go to the woods to watch these self-important cons light off a bomb." But it is funny. So these idiots lit off a bomb. They burned down 13 million acres, something like that, of California. There's already been about 24 deaths, maybe more. That was just the last I checked. And on Twitter, a lot of my peers have, the takeaway for them is that the binary, this is what happens when you believe that gender is binary. Gender is non-binary. Like that, it shouldn't be. The takeaway should be to not go into the woods and set off an explosive, which is a much more extreme, radical behavior than believing that gender is man and woman. Like, I get that you believe that. That can be a separate debate. I'm willing to have it. I'm willing to entertain the conversation. I think it's pretty fucking ridiculous to not act like the focus of this is to not explode bombs in the woods. Like, what if someone was woke and they just had, like, all the correct beliefs? They were like, Medicare for all, and reparations, and Black Lives Matter, and we need to get the money out of politics, and then, they just went into a town square and shot 80 random people. Would you forgive that? Like, would you be like, well, the politics were great, and, we really don't have anything to say? Or like any, Republicans obviously would harp on it on the other end. They'd be like, this person believed that every single person desired to have cancer and not go bankrupt. And look what happens when you believe that. You shoot 80 people. Like, it's stupid to not separate the horrible thing they did from, whatever arbitrary beliefs may have been quoted in that. I mean, even the people saying, like, and this is climate change at work. Like, perhaps climate change may have led to the droughts that made the area more dry and more susceptible to fire. I feel like there's not enough people mad that they specifically set off a bomb in the woods and burned down much of California. And that is my gripe. That is my gripe, whatever. Oh, I'm so looking forward to these presidential debates. They're going to be content AF. I was watching a Trump press conference the other day, just because I thought it would be funny, and I was correct, of course, as I often am. With that, I mean, that's a layup line. I thought a Trump press conference would be funny. That's be surprising if it wasn't. I mean, honestly, some people, my mom, how can you even give the guy the time of day? And I'm like, he's funny. He's humor content, Mom. Cutting edge humor, you might say. And my girlfriend came over, but then I had to do a job interview via Zoom, so I just left the Fox News Live YouTube channel running, and it went to a full-on Trump rally, where everyone there hopefully will get COVID and die. They deserve to, for the way that they have just congregated in spite of the global pandemic. to listen to Trump, who I believe he's very, very funny. But I don't really have any respect for anyone who has this cult-like adoration of him, as much that I don't really respect anyone who has a cult-like adoration for any individual. Some people like the Queen of England. That's gay. Some people like the Kardashians. They got canceled also because Kanye West is gay. So that's just stupid. Don't do that dumb shit. Anyways, I came out of the room after the interview, and she was laughing her ass off. She's like, I didn't think I was going to like this, but this is hilarious. Because he is hilarious. Because he just says nonsense. He's not someone you want to charge, obviously, but it's so fucking hilarious. But we gotta, I'd rather he get out of office just because his supporters are just so annoying, and they don't, they just care about sticking it to, like, the girl with the pink hair who is malnourished and who yelled, because I get it. I've been yelled at by a pink-haired girl for, like, no reason before, just because, like, she hates straight white men, and that was just kind of her, she used, in this case, I was out in public, I wasn't anywhere near her, she yelled from 20 feet away that I should be wearing a mask. I'm like, I'm not 6 feet near any other humans. I thought this was the rule. But, obviously she just hated straight white men, and she wanted an excuse to yell. And, I say, oh, that's unfortunate that person has so much anger in their heart. And some fucking idiot cunts take that, like, way too far, and they're like, that person with the pink hair is a huge bitch, so now I believe that we should bomb a country that I've never heard of, or no one should have health care. The ACA, that's Obama's socialism. I make $33,000 a year, and I don't have health benefits, but I think that the ACA is bullshit. Yeah, people who've literally never had health insurance in their entire life are trying to say that, like, yeah, but when Trump repeals Obamacare, I get that, I love the best is, like, the mom's basement libertarians. Like, we need a free market. It's all going to self-correct, and I'll be able to own a house working at this call center. Yeah, you might need a little more help than that, Betty. Yeah, might need a little more help than that. The cure for libertarianism, by the way, is getting laid, having sex with a first, because there's never been a female libertarian in the history of ever. Just has never happened. And I don't really think there's really ever been a homosexual male either. I think it is primarily straight men who live at their parents' basements. So you have sex, all of a sudden, boom, social programs, Medicare for all, everything's fixed. It's great. So I'm glad we solved that important issue on the pod. Where's the pause button? All right, I took a brief break there. I paused it because I didn't have a lighter, and I'm going to hit this bowl because this is a guy podcast. This is a cool, young, hip guy podcast where I smoke weed on the podcast. It makes it interesting. Hip guy podcast coming up. I'm gonna hit this bowl of weed, and I'm gonna talk about the 3 principles to how you get any woman fast. Principle number 1, you gotta be confident. Ladies want a fucking confident guy. I go up to a girl, I say full confidence. I say, my name is George Costanza. I'm unemployed, and I live with my mother. It is funny though. A lot of people love to smoke the weed on camera. I can't believe I'm gonna. Do I want to give that up if I go to the studio? Vertolo, send me a message on Instagram. Send me a message on Instagram at JustForQuiggles. Tell me whether or not I should do the podcast in the big studio where I can't smoke pot. Ugh. I remember when the movie Pineapple Express came out, there was like a joke in the movie where James Franco's character is like, coughing gets you 10 times higher. And like that movie, I probably came out when I was like 13, but we all like watched when we were like 15, 16. And most of the people I knew repeated that as if it was actually a fact, which I don't believe it's a fact. They would always have a pseudoscientific explanation, though. Like, coughing, it stimulates the bronchial tubes. And they didn't say, they were not fucking smart enough to know that it opens up your lung tubes. That's probably what they said. Opens up your lung tubes. And feeling in my soul. Andy Kindler. I met the guy in an airport once. Met him in an airport. I was 19 years old. I had actually tried open mic comedy once. But I had not started doing stand-up regularly. I didn't start doing stand-up regularly until I was about 23 years old. Yeah, 23 and a half, if you want to get technical. But, Andy Kindler, I met him at an airport. We had a very pleasant conversation about, just comedy and things of that nature. I don't remember it too. He recommended I listen to certain people. Really don't remember anyone he said because it was so long ago. He was fresh off being the host of Last Comic Standing just a few years prior. He was like, not a host, but a judge of Last Comic Standing. And now one of my favorite comics, the Tim Dillon of all time, Tim Dillon. My podcast is kind of like a not good ripoff of his. Andy Kindler, he's trying to tear him down, and it sucks. I've never met Tim Dillon. I hope to someday. But yeah, it really sucks that, Andy Kindler, a guy I like. If you follow him on Twitter, he starts a lot of unnecessary arguments. And he's trying to tear down Tim Dillon for making some pretty, decent points. Just basically saying stuff that, Biden and Trump both suck. And pretty agreeable points. But he's one of those people, dump Trump, never Trump. And, I would prefer Trump get out of office. I'm sorry to say that I do prefer the reanimated dead body and the corpse of Biden and the horrible human being Kamala Harris. Let's get someone who's hurt the black communities and then talk about how not racist she is because she is black. Don't look into anything she's done. She is black. It's horrible. Whatever. Something way worse than that. So we were up in the White Mountain region in New Hampshire, as I said earlier. We were staying with my friend Patrick. A great time. He's got a beautiful house right on the river and all this fun stuff. And we were looking at activities to do. So we saw that there's a go-kart track in a town called Tamworth. And that's an interesting town named Tamworth. It is fun to say, but also very aesthetically unpleasing to the ears. So we tried to figure out, where's this Tamworth name come from? So I looked it up on Wikipedia, and it says, granted in 1766 by the colonial governor Benning Wentworth, this town was named in honor of his close friend, British Admiral Washington Shirley, Viscount Tamworth, which I initially pronounced Viscount, which apparently is Viscount. My friend corrected me. So, that didn't make any sense. It appears Viscount Tamworth was this guy's title. Why didn't he name the town Shirley? This is dumb. See, this is why there was a Revolutionary War. No one respects stupid British stuff. And it gets way worse if you actually click on the Wikipedia link to Viscount Tamworth. Then you get a block of text that was clearly not written by anyone. It was just copy and pasted from some hard-to-read old British text. So first of all, it redirects to Earl Ferrers, which is like, how the fuck did we get here? I clicked on Viscount Tamworth, and now I'm talking about Earl Ferrers. Earl Ferrers does sound like a jazz musician. It's not, though. It's a title in the Peerage of Great Britain, created in 1711 for Robert Shirley, 14th Baron Ferrers of Chartley. Chartley sounds kind of like chutney, and I would love chutney. I would love some Indian food with a nice, maybe a yogurt-based chutney. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the Shirley family. Defense from George Shirley. Died 1622, bitch, at Aswell Castle, Northamptonshire. In 1611, he was created a baronet of Staunton Herald, or County of Leicester, in the baronetage of England. He's succeeded by his own son, the second baron. This whole article is kind of written as if someone with like a long trumpet isn't just arrived somewhere and is announcing their arrival. And he's like, burr, 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 burr. He died as an infant and was succeeded by his uncle, the 7th Baronet. In 1766, King Charles II, huge bitch, terminated the abeyance of the barony of Ferrers of Chartley in a favor and a... Alright, now at this point, who the fuck is reading or writing this sentence? This is just gibber. I just want to know where the name Tamworth came from. And now they're... In the balcony of the barony of the Ferrers of Chartley. Oh, sorry, I'll go back. I'll run it as they say in the rap battles. Whenever they do the rap battles and there's a great line, and everyone goes "Arr!" and then they're like, I have to run that back. So they go back a few lines. The abeyance of the barony of the Ferrers of Chartley in his favor, and he became the 13th Baron Ferrers of Chartley. His claim to the barony of Bouchier was overlooked, however, and he later served as the Master of Horse. Great title. He served as the Master of Horse. That is a real title that a person had. Like Game of Thrones had those silly titles like Master of Coin. But this is not a fantasy novel. This is a real guy who served as Master of the Horse. Again, I was trying to figure out where the name of the town, Tamworth, New Hampshire, came from, and now I'm on a Wikipedia page for Earl Ferrers, trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. And now I'm finding out that this guy was in charge of horses. By the way, if you're like a guy who likes to fuck horses, Master of Horse is it's kind of like how pedophiles are attracted to be like priests and coaches. Like, if you're like a horse fucker, you probably want to be the Master of Horse. Although, if you got syphilis, you'd probably die immediately, because it is the 1700s at this point. Or the 1600s? Unclear. Let's read on. He later served as Master of Horse and as the Lord Steward to the Queen Consort, Catherine of Braganza, and the Lord Lieutenant of Staffordshire. In 1711, he was created Viscount Tamworth of Tamworth County, Stafford, and Earl Ferrers in the Peerage of Great Britain. So we got the Tamworth of Tamford County and Stafford. I'm worried that if we go to this... Now, this should have been a link, but maybe it doesn't exist anymore? I don't know. A little confusing. He was succeeded in the baroners of the Ferrers of Chartley. Okay, now it's just a bunch of... He died and... I hate all this. He was created... That's such a weird passive voice. He was created Viscount Tamworth. Like, they exploded him into a million pieces, and then they used it like robot parts to rebuild him as the Viscount Tamworth. That could be a Star Wars villain. I'm Viscount Tamworth. Oh, yeah? Well, I'm Earl Ferrers, jazz musician. I'm Earl Ferrers. No, Earl's a title, not a name of a black guy, which is less cool in this context. Again, this is why the American Revolution was staged. No one cares about this. They said, we're starting a new history. We're going to have Washington. We're going to have Jefferson. We're going to have Alexander Hamilton. He's going to get shot by Aaron Burr. It's going to be a whole big thing someday. Going to be played by effeminate black men. It's going to be great. Lin-Manuel Miranda, the guy, the worst singing voice in the whole production. He's going to star in the play because he wrote it. Still, I don't know. If I wrote a musical, I would know that I shouldn't be starring in it. So I don't know that guy. I feel like he's a guy I really wouldn't get along with in real life. Like, he just got me that. I think the only people who get along with him in real life are like Disney executives. Like, you need to be above him on the pecking order for him to be agreeable to you in person. That's just the vibe I get from seeing that play and seeing his Twitter and his brief appearances on the television show Curb Your Enthusiasm. That's just all I think. All right, let's dig into this Tamworth bit. Also, heir apparent. Come on. You guys are just you went way out of your way to sound pretentious. You're wearing these silly fucking outfits. You still got a queen who looks like a poofy, ridiculous caricature, and you're on pedophile islands. The fact that like America is way ahead of the curve on not taking you seriously, and then we like kind of did a nosedive hypocrisy, and we started worshiping celebrities and like bad politicians who had good PR departments. So that one's on us. But, we definitely made a good move. He was Vice Admiral in the Royal Navy. He was childless and succeeded by his younger brother, the 6th Earl. His eldest son, the 7th. But these titles don't mean anything. Like, my friend did some Ancestry.com shit and found out he was an Earl somewhere. I'm like, they were just fucking throwing Earl around. So it's really not that big of an accomplishment. Also, you didn't do anything, by the way. Complain about generational wealth. What about generational being an Earl? We're typing in Tamworth, Staffordshire now. To see if there's anything interesting here. A large market town and borough in Staffordshire, England, 14 miles northeast of Birmingham on the west coast main line. Doesn't really look like it's actually on the coast, though. That's a little bit. Tamworth is hosts a simple but elevated 12th century castle. Okay, that's pretty cool. A moat house, capital of the Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Mercia during the Heptarchy of the Seven Kingdoms and throughout its later greater form. See, that's why England was bullshit. They had 7 kingdoms that, had issues with each other. They're a small-ass country. The USA, 1 country, 50 states. We only went to war once, and when we did, we split in 2, not into 7, like dumbass. Oh, the Snow Dome, prototype real indoor ski slope in Tamworth. That's interesting. That's much cooler than the go-kart track that's in the New Hampshire Tamworth. There's also a Tamworth, Ohio, but we're not going to read about that one because that sounds stupid. Like, I don't care. Apparently, when the Romans arrived in Britain in 43 Common Era, that's BC. All right, what is it? Oh, yeah. Well, it used to be AD, but, everyone thought Jesus was a bitch, so they changed it to CE. 43 to 409 CE, we don't know. In the Trent Valley, it was home to the British Courtenay tribe. Evidence of a Roman activity in the area. Tamworth consists of fragments of Roman building materials. Scandal. Tamworth was near Roman Road, Walting Street. Wow, how crazy did it the Romans landed in this place in the year 43 to 400? No one really knows. And the place they landed happened to be right near Roman Road. Can't believe it. That is really something. Oh, Mercia. Okay, this is getting to a lot. Medieval history, anything dramatic, looks like they build a castle, small market town, charters. Yeah, this ain't that great. None of this. And we don't even know about Shirley. This is how unimportant fucking Viscount Tamworth was. He doesn't even appear in the history of the town that he was allegedly the Viscount of. Makes no sense. We're here in the 18th century, where this allegedly took place. Also, the 18th century section starts in 1901, which shouldn't it start in 1701? I'm pretty sure these guys have a fucked up understanding of how everyone knows that you go up one. Everyone knows that. Because there was no zeroth. In computer science, there is a zeroth, But that just has to do with, it's easier to do the algebra and the math, all that shit. Well, this is really an unremarkable place, so I guess it shouldn't come as that much a surprise that the U.S. town named after it is kind of in the middle of nowhere, New Hampshire, and their claim to fame is that they have a go-kart track. But New Hampshire's a beautiful place, very green. Climbed a couple of peaks. I recommend you go there. To get away from this hustle and this bustle. Actually, scratch that. I like going there, and I'd rather there be less people, actually, so don't. Stay away. Definitely don't go to the region where I was in, but just to be safe, avoid the entire state. You can go to Vermont or something, go to Maine. On the way back, we were driving through Maine, and there's this big sign that's like, keep Maine healthy, $500 fine. Because what happened was, normally we would just drive straight from the New Hampshire to Massachusetts border, but we were trying to hit this restaurant, and just the route to the restaurant off the highway involved briefly entering Maine and then re-entering New Hampshire. So for 15 minutes, we were liable, because Maine just has this rule, we were liable to get a $500 fine just for having Massachusetts plates. So boy, it's exciting though. I've never really been in a place where, I've been in a place where I wasn't allowed to be before many times, but I've never been in an actual state. I've never been in a geographical area that I was straight up not allowed to be in. I've been in a building I wasn't allowed to be in. I've been in a yard that I wasn't, a park obviously. We've all smoked weed at the park after hours when you're not supposed to be there. And one time on Halloween, I was walking home from the train station. I had to shit wicked badly, and there was no restaurant, anything like that. There was no pharmacy that might. There was just a random office building. And it was a 2-mile walk, so there's no way I was making it all the way to my house. It was just a residential neighborhood, and there was this one kind of office building, which was a little out of place in the neighborhood. So I just poked around, and thankfully one of the back doors was open. I walked in, walked right by a meeting room. People were having a meeting. Clearly didn't belong there. I was dressed as the Riddler. I had a jacket with question marks all over it. I was a less serious Riddler than the one that you might see in the trailer for the new Batman movie that Robert Pattinson ruined with COVID. And then, I just wrecked their bathroom after a night of beer drinking and probably ordering pizza at 3 a.m. I don't remember. I just remember that I was the Riddler, I played pranks. I was the Riddler. I had riddles. I'm pretty sure I ran out of riddles and started doing math problems. I had 2 go-to ones, and then, I ran out. That was a fun night. My friend made us do a keg stand, made us do a keg stand for him, and he was really fat, so then we kind of just dropped him, and he knocked over the entire beer pong table when he kind of bounced off the keg. It was great. It ruined the whole party. They kicked us all out. I was dressed as a supervillain, so it was kind of on brand. And we were about to leave anyway, so it wasn't like we got kicked out at 9 o'clock. It was fun. It was fun. It was fun. My friend got very upset because of how fat his lip got that he punched a random car and just like, he was a strong guy. So he didn't just like punch a car and break his hand. He like punched a car and just made a straight dent into the fender of the car and then walked away. And somehow the car's alarm didn't go off. Would have been funny if it did. So that's a story of me being in a place I'm not allowed to be. Oh, of course, in college, we also did the classic, like, oh, yeah, our friend Mike invited us, and then that didn't work like 99.9 times. Actually, I was correct. It had never worked. It never once worked. But every now and then, the person having the party would just say, hey, you guys, you're just looking for a party. You just want to hang out. Get out of it. Because in Boston, like, fucking negative something degrees in the middle of the winter. We go out wearing like a light jacket, being like, maybe we can find a party where they'll let us in. Because we didn't know anyone. We were living in the dorms. We were a bunch of stupid idiots. And then what happens? Sometimes they just let us in. So I think that's pretty much the history of me being in places I'm not supposed to be. You know, a place I'm really not supposed to be is Tamworth. Because it's in the UK and I don't think I'm allowed to travel there. But it might be hard to pull off a boat, travel to the UK by boat, and just hope that I land near this Tamworth place. I don't know. Maybe I'll set up a Patreon and people can give me money to fund a high-speed boat where I can get myself over to Tamworth. Because, you know, they're not letting me get on a plane. Of course, I might get in trouble for announcing the plans on the podcast. I don't have much for you this week, guys. I had the history of Tamworth. I had a bunch of BS I said earlier. Don't set off explosions in the fire. In the woods, sorry. Don't set off fire explosions. I was drinking all weekend. Don't set off fire explosions in the woods, guys. Please. Don't burn down, because, you know, if you burn down Colorado next, then, you know, then all we have left is New England, and all you fucks are going to come here and ruin it, and then obviously burn that down. Thankfully, the thing we have going for us is that no one in Vermont, New Hampshire, or Maine has ever heard of a gender reveal party, so they're way behind that, like, stupid bullshit trendy curve. So we got a while before they burn down any of those woods in their gender reveal parties, which gives me some solace. I take some solace in that. But I also take solace in knowing that no matter what I do, I will never bear the title Ur Ferrers Viscount Tamworth. Good night, folks.